Part 23. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 221. Chapter 221 Contract with Chenfei. When Yuan returned to the valley, Mujukan was already eagerly waiting for her. "Why are you back so late?" Yuan put the flying boat away and went back side by side with him. Oh, it was her head and his shoulders. She looked at his height and wondered why she hadn't noticed that he was so much taller than her before. "Huh? What are you looking at?" Mujukan felt her gaze, hugged her, and moved her head with his other hand to ask her. "Did you meet a psychopath today? Crazy? What's going on?" Mujukan stopped. "Well, they found out about our killing of Miss Chen-san and sent Chen-shizan." Yuan told Chen-shizan the reason for his visit. Mujukan didn't say anything after hearing this. He silently hugged her and walked towards her attic. "Wan-er, please be more careful from now on. Next time you go to Fangxi, I will go with you. Think about it, this Pingding Mountain is the territory of their Chen family. How can they allow things that are better than theirs to be sold on their territory? This is cutting off other people's financial opportunities." Yuan curled her lips. Why didn't she know this truth? She wasn't afraid. Anyway, she would kill them one by one. If she couldn't kill them, she would hide. Those who are afraid of hands and feet, when will her cultivation level be promoted? To gain a foothold in this world of immortality? Mujukan sent her to the attic, stayed with her for a while, and then returned to Mu Mansion. This girl didn't listen to what he said, or she listened but didn't care. He couldn't ignore it. He looked at the forest behind the valley. Monks can best improve their combat effectiveness and cultivation in battle. He had to go into the mountains to practice for a while. Mujukan went back to make arrangements for his family, and then went into the mountain overnight. Yuan didn't know that Mujukan had entered the mountain. After she went back, she ate something and entered the space. She first went into the red earth and scattered 5,000 spiritual stones. As soon as the spiritual stones fell to the ground, the spiritual energy on the red earth gradually became richer. After one stick of incense, it reached the strongest point in the history of the space, even more so. The elixirs on earth mature at the speed of the naked eye. She took the opportunity to pick it off, and then the elixir grew from the root at the speed of the naked eye. Tisk, 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 this foodie has eaten so many spiritual stones, and he still knows how to repay it. She didn't expect that the red earth had such characteristics. It turned out that there was enough spiritual energy, and the first level elixir could be matured in a short period of time. In this way, she can produce elixirs in the future, as long as she has enough spirit stones. She put the elixir in her hand and looked at it carefully. The elixir was liquid and had spiritual energy lingering on it. She was overjoyed. The quality was 2 levels higher than before. This was truly a first-class elixir. If you take it to make elixirs, you won't be able to get rid of the top-grade elixirs without telling them about the top-grade elixirs. The erysipelas contained in the top-grade elixir is very small, and your family can definitely take this elixir to improve their cultivation. She simply uprooted all the spiritual grains and spiritual vegetables in the red soil, and planted them all with first-level elixirs and some second-level elixirs. Then take all the mature elixirs back to the alchemy room and start refining the elixir again until it is finished. Haha, Yuan looked at the bottles of elixirs in front of her with a happy mood. This batch of elixirs only contained a few low-grade elixirs. Most of them were high-grade elixirs, with some mid-grade elixirs. There were also 5 bottles of top-grade elixirs. She couldn't make top-grade elixirs or top-quality elixirs before, and she thought her alchemy skills were poor. It turned out that it had something to do with the elixir. She mainly refined 2 types of elixirs this time, the Qi-gathering pill and the healing pill. These 2 types of elixirs are most needed by monks. In addition, she also refined a batch of Qi replenishing pills, which are also indispensable in the fight. When the spiritual power in the body is about to run out, you can immediately take the chi building pill to replenish the spiritual power in the body. Sometimes when you encounter opponents who are equally matched, you can defeat them even if you cannot win. After refining this batch of elixirs, she stopped to rest for a while. She was exhausted from using her consciousness for a long time. She came to the black soil. There were more than 100 acres of elixirs grown here, half of which existed in the previous space. Some of the elixirs she still didn't recognize. These elixirs must be high-level elixirs. She couldn't let this elixir die. She originally thought that there were many elixirs in the world of immortality, but when she came, she realized that there were so many elixirs that they were not as good as hers. She touched the spiritual stones in the bag and kept 100 pieces. The remaining about 20,000 pieces she gritted her teeth and scattered them into the ground. It is a pity that there are too few spiritual stones. At least 500,000 spiritual stones must be scattered on these more than 100 acres to replenish the extremely hungry land. After the spiritual stone was absorbed by the land, the spiritual energy in the space became much richer. Chen Fei, who was working on the other side, looked at the changes in the space in surprise. He put down his spiritual and ran over. When he saw Yuan, he shrank his neck, raised his feet and walked away. Yuan also saw him and remembered this big trouble. Her eyes rolled a few times. Chen Fei, do you want to go out? Huh, going out, he nodded honestly. After nodding, he regretted a little. He drooped his head and thought to himself, I want to get out alive, not dead. Well, after you return to the Chen clan, I want you to find out any bad news about me and send it to me. Chen Fei was confused. Is it so difficult? He is just an ordinary disciple who has no access to the senior members of the family. I'm just an ordinary disciple. I'm not going to investigate. I'll try my best. When Chen Fei saw the look in Yuan's eyes, he almost knelt down. Yuan said calmly, then force out a drop of blood. Essence and blood. Right. Okay, he thought on his knees and knew that she would not let him go easily. He immediately used his power and a drop of blood came out from the center of his eyebrows. Yuan immediately pinched the magic weapon to wrap the essence and blood, and quickly imprinted her spiritual consciousness on the essence and blood. Finally, a spiritual pattern formed by the magic weapon was stamped on the essence and blood. She raised her hand again, and the essence and blood returned to the body. In Chen Fei's sea of consciousness. Suddenly, Yuan had the feeling that as long as she had the thought of killing Chen Fei, he would die immediately. Chen Fei's eyes were glazed over for a short time, and then his eyesight returned to clarity. He bowed respectfully to Yuan and shouted, Master. Yeah, she nodded with satisfaction. She got this contract from Miss Chen San. The piece she crushed contained several contracts and a dual cultivation technique. She had to use this contract with Zhifei. As soon as he told her about space or betrayed her, the drop of blood in his sea of consciousness would automatically explode. It can range from dementia to death. Moreover, he didn't dare to touch it or try to force out the blood essence. It was impossible. The same could lead to dementia at worst or death at worst. This way she can rest assured that when Chen Fei goes out, it would be good to have an informant in the Chen clan. After she returned Chen Fei's storage bag to him, she sent him out of the space. He also gave him a bottle of high-grade qi gathering pill and a bottle of medium-grade healing pill. And she began to draw talismans in the space again, trying to earn more spiritual stones to restore the space, or even move up to the next level. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 222. Chapter 222, Being Remembered. Yuan went to the market after preparing a lot this time. She set up her stall at the original location as usual. As soon as they were set up, Many monks buying elixirs gathered around them. Huh? Fellow Taoist, you also have talismans for sale, huh? Why is your talisman different? A monk in green clothes picked up a talisman and looked at it for a while and asked her. Huh? Fellow Taoist, is this elixir a middle-grade elixir? When another monk picked up the elixir bottle and opened it, he cried out in excitement. What? I'll take a look too. Ah, it's really a middle-grade chi gathering pill. I'll buy it. Everyone knows that there are very few middle-grade elixirs on the market, and even if you have spiritual stones, you can't buy them. This has to be mentioned. Pingding Shanfang City is in the hands of the Chen family, and the Chen family can sell whatever they want. Some people say that I don't have to buy it. I have the elixir recipe and I can make it myself. It's okay to practice it once or twice, but do you have so many elixirs? You also said that you went to the market to buy it. Does the market sell you the main medicine? You said you would go into the mountains to collect it. Do you dare to go in the inner area of Wuhua Mountain? If you want to go anywhere else, it's actually the same. If you want to leave Wuhua Mountain and go to the inland Xiaoxian city, you might as well go to Wuhua Mountain. At least you can go hunting in the mountains and collect some elixirs. So over time, the monks have become accustomed to this, struggling to survive at the bottom of this world. How can they not be excited when they see that a middle-grade elixir is on the market today? Moreover, the middle-grade pills contain less erysipelas, so they can practice faster with the middle-grade chi-gathering pills. They also found that the pills sold by Yuan contained very little poison, and they basically used less poison-clearing pills. Yuan nodded towards them and said, yes, but my elixirs are much more expensive. 1 bottle of medium-grade elixirs and 5 spiritual stones for each talisman. You have not used the talisman before, so you can buy less and try it first. No, it doesn't matter, I'll buy it. The monk took out the spirit stone and bought a bottle of chi gathering pill and 3 talismans of each kind. In this way, Yuan sold out all the goods in one noon. After closing the stall, she bought talismans and elixir seedlings that no one was interested in at another stall. It is of no use to others, but these are great for her. Not only does it help other monks solve their inventory, but she can also occasionally buy rare elixirs that cannot be bought in the store. After shopping, Yuan was not in a hurry to leave. She knew that there were a lot of spiritual stones sold today and there were many people who wanted to rob her. So she stayed at the inn again. In the Chen family hall, Patriarch Chen took a few glances at the elixir and talisman in his hand. Dad, the quality of these elixirs and talismans are much better than those in our clan, but she is not solicited by us, are we? A foundation building monk below made a gesture of wiping his neck. Today he was in the market and saw so many monks crowding around Yuan to buy elixirs, talismans, and even spiritual grains and vegetables. He was so angry that those spiritual stones originally belonged to the Chen family, but now they fell into the hands of a small Qi practitioner. A few days ago, he learned from the clan leader that Yuan was not willing to join the Chen family. Today he came to Fangxi specifically to see who dared to make a lot of spiritual stones in their Fangxi. So, how could he not hate Yuan to death when he saw this scene? So he also asked people to buy Yuan's elixirs and talismans, as well as spiritual grains and spiritual vegetables. Clan Chief Chen narrowed his eyes. A layman would watch the excitement, while an insider would watch the doorway. He was a third-level alchemist. He could tell at a glance that the main ingredient in the elixir was Scutellaria barbata, and each elixir was of high quality. He couldn't help but wonder, where did that female cultivator with a foreign accent come from? How come there are so many elixirs? Where did her elixir come from? He glanced at his son below, his eyes full of disappointment. He was just a man with well-developed limbs and a simple mind. How could such a person take over the position of his clan leader? He didn't think of a way to get people to come to the clan to work for the clan, and by the way, he could also find out the source of the female cultivator's elixir. If he could get it, the clan would still be short of elixirs. A fool who only knows but doesn't know how to make the best use of things. Fortunately, he still has 2 sons, so the position of patriarch will not fall into the hands of others. He said calmly, I have made my own decision on this matter. You don't need to worry about it. I just need to practice hard. He wanted to say one more thing, practice and practice your stupid mind. Thinking that it was his own son, he swallowed the words again. The male cultivator didn't realize that his father had already thought about it 1,000 times. He bowed to the patriarch and left happily. Come here, the patriarch called as soon as his son left. Clan leader, a male chi practitioner wearing a disciple uniform in blue came in from outside. Patriarch, hurry up and call the great elder. Yes, the disciple in green hurriedly left the hall. After half a stick of incense, a middle-aged man in black entered the hall. He saluted the patriarch and said, Why is the patriarch so urgent? At the critical moment when he was refining the elixir, he called the disciple over in a hurry. Fortunately, he was in a hurry to collect the elixir, otherwise he would have been blown away. Then, look at this, the patriarch threw the elixir bottle to the great elder. The great elder then asked him to see the elixir in such a hurry. Could it be that there was something wrong with his elixir? He hurriedly poured out the elixir. Huh? This is not the elixir that I made. Huh? This elixir is amazing. Clan leader, you made it? Well, no, the quality of the elixir used in this elixir is not low. Where is the elixir in our clan? It's so good, the great elder muttered a lot, then he crushed one and examined it carefully. After a long while, the expression on the face of the great elder was a bit shocked. He raised his eyes and asked the patriarch who was sitting on the throne, Clan chief, this prescription is an ancient prescription, not the one used today. Where did you get it? He is an alchemy fanatic. Whenever different elixirs appear, he will try his best to understand them and refine them himself. Of course the patriarch is aware of his virtues. He just wants the elder to pester Yuan. Even if he can't get her to come to the clan, the secrets of the things in her hands will definitely not escape the palm of the elder. This is an elixir cultivated by a chi practitioner in the market. He did not sell it, which aroused his curiosity even more. But it was indeed refined by Yuan, and there is nothing wrong with what he said. Oh, then I must go and take a look. The great elder raised his eyebrows. He happily collected the elixir bottle and returned to his alchemy room. The patriarch watched him leave and couldn't help but sneer. Snored. If she is targeted by this old man, she will have to shed her skin even if she doesn't die, not to mention that among the arrogant people in his Chen clan's territory, there is no one who doesn't have grass growing on their graves. But she said that Yuan stayed in Fangxi until the next morning, when she got up and performed the face-changing surgery. This time she transformed herself into a male cultivator, walked out of the inn, and walked around the city. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 223. Chapter 223, 12 Levels of Chi Training. She purposely stood at the spot where she set up the stall for a while. As expected, more monks came to buy elixirs today. When everyone saw that it was empty, they all shook their heads in disappointment and left. There are a lot of casual cultivators here. The main reason is that all the people in this continent are cultivating immortals. There are only a small number of people who can cultivate but have good qualifications. Those few are basically accepted by sects and cultivating families. Some of them were loyal to the imperial court, and the rest with poor qualifications became casual cultivators who practiced on their own. And the number is quite large, accounting for at least 60%. While she was walking around the market, A middle-aged man in black was also standing in front of where she set up a stall, and it took a long time before he left. Yu hesitated, bought some things, and left the market. He got on the flying boat and drove in the opposite direction before flying around to the valley. When she returned to the valley, Yu Heiran and the others had not returned yet. She went to find Mujukan. When she found out that he had entered the mountain, she returned to the attic and entered the space to scatter the spiritual stones into the space. Ah, it's so comfortable. These more than 40,000 spiritual stones were not thrown away in vain. Yuan breathed in the increasingly dense aura of the space. After that, she also scattered 5,000 spiritual stones in the red earth, and ripened the elixir before returning to the bedroom. She thought that it was time to advance her cultivation level, and it was too long to stay at the 11th level of the Qi training stage. Last time, those top-quality Qi gathering pills were not sold, so she tried them. She had never eaten the Qi gathering pills she had made herself for so long. Pour out a top-grade Qi gathering pill. She took it in her hand and smelled it. It was indeed more fragrant than the low-grade, middle-grade, and top-grade pills. Yuan swallowed the elixir into his belly and started to use his skills to refine and absorb it. 3 days have passed in space. Boom, Yuan heard the barrier in her body break open, and finally broke through to the 12th level of Qi training. So she spent another 3 days consolidating her cultivation. After the cultivation has been consolidated, it is natural to refine elixirs and draw talismans. 2 top-quality elixirs. When she made the first batch of elixirs, not only the time was shortened, but the quality was also improved a lot. She did not expect that after advancing to the 12th level of Qi training, her level of alchemy would improve so much. So she continued to refine, and when she finished refining all the elixirs she had picked, she was even more surprised. This time, they were all medium-grade, top-grade, and top-grade elixirs, and there was not a single low-grade elixir left. And there are only 1/4 of the middle-grade ones, 2/4 of the top-grade ones, and 1/4 of the top-grade ones. At this time, she was a bit confused. How to sell this elixir? Originally, there were few people buying middle-grade elixirs in the market, but now there are a lot of high-grade elixirs. If this goes on the market, won't it be a big deal? It seems that we can't sell it in Pingding Shanfang City this time. You can only go to the Fangshi of large sects. She was not afraid of what someone would do to her, but what would happen to the monk who bought her elixir. So she made up her mind to go to Haoyu sect, which is more than 2,000 miles away from here. She often heard the monks who bought her pills mention that the Haoyu sect's 10-year recruitment meeting for disciples would be held in a month, and many monks would participate in the election. At that time, it was better for her to sell elixirs, so she collected the elixirs and made elixirs in space. She came out with only half a month left. What she didn't know was that she hadn't been to Fangshi in the past half month, and the people looking for her were all crazy. Especially the Great Elder, who was basically guarding the market every day, but there was no sign of her, which made him feel like a cat scratching his head, wishing to catch her immediately. The people who were waiting to buy the elixir saw that she hadn't come for half a month, and everyone started talking. Did she be harmed by someone? One person frowned. Maybe she left. Her accent is not from this place. Another person also sighed. It was difficult for someone to sell good quality elixirs in such a short time. There are only 2 guesses, one is that he was killed, and the other is that he left. After all, this is the Chen family's territory, and they will definitely not allow her to sell it here for too long. As the days went by, there were fewer monks waiting for her every day, and it was almost back to the days before Yuan appeared. Yuan came out of the attic. The yard was very lively. With a whoosh sound, the little snake flew into her arms. "Master, little snake misses you so much." Pht! Yuan laughed out loud, and she knocked the little snake on the head. "You miss me, why don't I feel it? What do you want to do?" The little snake twisted its fat body, and an immature third-level snake spirit flower floated out from its body. You want me to ripen it for you and give it to your wife? Yeah, yes, the little snake nodded repeatedly. Okay, master, let's ripen it earlier. Let's talk about your harvest this time. Scier, are you out of seclusion? While the master and servant were talking, Heron came over with a group of people smiling happily. The little snake has the good sense to find a wife, so it's up to the master's elder brother to do the talking. How is it, seeing how happy you all are? It's a good harvest. Yes, fourth sister, let me tell you, this time there is a little snake taking us, and we have even hunted second-level monsters. Hee, we have divided a lot of spiritual stones. Xiaolai rushed up, took her arm and kept chattering. All sold. Well, the eldest brother and brother Jukan went to sell it together, Xiaolai said again. Oh, brother, did you two encounter any trouble when you went to Fangxi? She asked Heron, who had been watching the two sisters talk with a smile. Heron shook his head. No, I came here to tell you that we are going to the mountains again, so that we can not only improve our combat effectiveness, but also hunt monsters and earn spiritual stones. So this is a sweet taste. Brother, let's go in and talk. She had no objection to Heron and the others going into the mountains to practice, but she had just scanned everyone's cultivation levels, and most of them were at a critical point. With a little push, their cultivation levels would definitely improve. In this way, when they entered the mountain again, their life-saving factor was a little higher. It just so happened that her top-grade elixir could be distributed to them. Heron nodded and entered the living room with her. Others were sitting in the small courtyard outside. After entering and sitting down, Yuan didn't say much. She took out 3 top-quality elixirs and a handful of talismans. Brother, there is no problem for you to enter the mountain. I will not object, but you still have to pay attention to safety. Brother will take the elixirs here and give them to them, so that they can go into seclusion to improve their cultivation before going. It happens that brother's cultivation is also fast. Break through to the 10th level, this is the best elixir, it can definitely help you break through. The best elixir? How much trouble has Xiaoxier experienced? It's just such a rare elixir of yours. How many spiritual stones do you have to sell? No, we can't have it. Brother, I think you should sell it, Heron hurriedly said, shaking his head. He pushed the elixir back to her. They can all support themselves now, and they can't always let their sister pay for them. As the eldest brother, he can't help her much, at least he can't cause her any more trouble. Yuan can understand Heron's mood, but in the world of immortality, strength speaks for itself, and the right way is to improve your strength. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 224. Chapter 224, How You Sect. She has plenty of ways to earn spiritual stones. She said, Brother, listen to me. The most important thing for us now is to improve our cultivation. Let's not talk about other things. If you think I am at a disadvantage, just give me the elixir you collected in the mountains. She believes that Heron is a smart man and knows how to make decisions. Okay, brother understands. Sure enough, he took the elixir and talisman on the table. The brothers and sisters talked about other things, and finally talked about the recruitment of disciples by How You Sect half a month later. This matter made Heron silent for a long time. Xiaoxier, I think we can let them give it a try. If they can enter the sect and practice, maybe one day they will be taught by a master. We ourselves are blind people crossing the river, practicing by feeling, without much experience, and we have wasted them. Qualifications. Yuan had nothing to stop her. She nodded, okay, let's go together then. It's better to gain some experience if you don't choose. She didn't have much hope in joining the section when she tested their spiritual roots, there were no good ones. But if they wanted to go or were chosen, of course she agreed. Follow her, she didn't teach anything, she just provided the exercises. Well, let's set off 3 days in advance. After saying this, Yuhairan took the things and went out. He distributed the elixirs to everyone, and then they all went back to retreat. After everyone left, Yuan came outside Mujukin's yard. Hey, Waner is here. When she entered the courtyard, Mujukin was explaining to Mr. Mu. He happened to see her coming and quickly stood up to leave. It's better for him, an old man, not to disturb the young couple. Hello, Grandpa Mu, congratulations on becoming a real monk. I didn't expect that Mr. Mu would reach the first level of Qi training so quickly. This old man is very hard-working. She immediately took out a storage bag and held it in front of him with both hands. Naturally, it contained the elixir she refined and the talismans she drew. Fortunately, she was prepared. Ha ha ha, okay, my dear grandson, Grandpa will accept it? You two can chat slowly. Grandpa is busy with something, Mr. Mu said cheerfully, took her storage bag and went out. Come in and sit down. Mujukin led her into the living room. Grandpa Mu brings the qi into the body very quickly, she said after sitting down. Well, it's okay. Dad and second uncle should slow down. It'll be fine for just a few days. My eldest brother, sister-in-law, and cousins have successfully introduced qi into their bodies and are still consolidating their cultivation. Mujukin, when talking about them, the eyes are full of joy. It's very rare. It's all thanks to your skills. Is there anything wrong with Waner? What, you can't come if you have nothing to do? Alas, I asked the wrong question. No way, I wish Waner could be with me all the time. I haven't seen you for so long and I miss you so much. Mujukin's nice words were freely spent without money, and he couldn't offend his wife by kissing her. Okay, stop being poor and go into seclusion as soon as possible. Oh, one more thing. In half a month, Haoyu sect will recruit disciples. Do you want to go? She took out the top-grade elixir and put 5 bottles on the table. Go up and ask him. Waner is going. I'm going, but I'm going to sell elixirs. As for my 3 spiritual roots, let's forget it. Yuan shook her head. Not to mention her 3 spiritual roots, she wouldn't go there even with a single spiritual root. What about herself? I don't know my temper. I can't stand that restriction, so I'm fine as a casual cultivator. Mujukin frowned. He had a single fire spirit root and was currently facing the task of building a foundation. Without the foundation building pill, he would be unable to build a foundation and his cultivation level would be dragged down. This is an opportunity. If he wants to enter the sect, there shouldn't be much problem, and he may even be able to be vigorously cultivated by the section. Moreover, his cultivation level can be improved in a short period of time, and he can also protect his family at the same time. My dear daughter-in-law is not going, how can I break it? He doesn't want to be separated from her. The sect has sect rules, so how can he be allowed to do it by himself like now? Sigh, I'm so confused, Mujukin sighed softly. You want to go? Yuan heard his sigh, with regret in his voice. She frowned. This guy wanted to go to the sect but knew he wouldn't go, so he must have sighed. Forget it, Waner won't go, and I won't go either. Mujukin casually picked up her elixir and looked at it. The best elixir, Waner is really a genius in alchemy, he rubbed her head. Yuan's eyes darkened, and she ignored Mujukin's praise for her. The only thought in her mind at this time was that Mujukin wanted to enter the section. She pouted, kicking her feet against the ground and staring at the tips of her shoes. She was always feeling uncomfortable. There were many beauties in the sect, but he couldn't stand the temptation and ran away with them. What should she do? What's wrong, Waner? Mujukin lowered his head and asked her, turning her face towards him. Seeing her unhappy face, he was confused. When did he offend his wife and make her angry? Nothing, I was just thinking that you should join the sect, so that you can enjoy the coolness with your back to the section. So many of us have no foundation and poor strength. If others want to make us round, we can make us round, and if they want to make us flat, they can flatten us. If you all can enter the sect, I will be a little worried. Yuan felt uncomfortable, but she couldn't be motivated. Mujukan was facing foundation establishment. Even if she had the elixir, she still didn't have the ability to refine the foundation establishment pill. It was a second-level elixir. As for him entering the sect, his horizons and circle have broadened. She has no way to change his mind, and he is not worthy of her sincerity. If he can maintain his original intention and treat her as before, it means that this man is worthy of her waiting. Mujukan thought about it and said, I will consider this matter carefully. I will ask Grandpa what he wants later. Okay, my eldest brother and the others will go too. Let's set off 3 days in advance. Yuan nodded. She stayed for a while and then returned to the attic. In Mr. Mew's study, the grandfather and grandson were sitting opposite each other. Warner also agrees to your going, Mr. Mew asked after taking a leisurely sip of tea. Well, so I came to ask Grandpa what he meant. Since Warner agrees for you to go, Grandpa won't stop you. But I've said something ugly before. If you enter the sect, don't practice well in it, and dare to do things that are sorry for Warner in the sect, don't blame me. I will show no mercy, Mr. Mew said sternly as he looked at his grandson. His general appearance suddenly soared, and Mujukan's heart tightened. Grandpa, what are you thinking about? You haven't even scratched your head. Even if I entered the sect, I wouldn't have thought about it. I only have Warner here, he said, pointing to his heart. How dare he? Even if he had 800 courages, he wouldn't dare to make his own wife sad. Well, you haven't turned into a white-eyed wolf yet, you go back, I'm going to practice. He raised the pill that Yuan gave him in his hand. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 225. Chapter 225 How You City. Mujukan was speechless. His grandfather was so cruel, or was he no longer his biological grandfather? He nodded and left. No one has gone anywhere in the past 10 days. They have all been in seclusion at home. They only came out when it was almost time to set off. Fortunately, in the past 10 days, the three brothers Yu Heiran have reached the 10th level of Qi training, and Xiao Wu, Xiao Lu, and Xiao Qi have all reached the 7th level of Qi training. The ones who have improved the most are Ke Fen Yuan and his son. Together they have reached the 7th level of Qi training, which is the same as Xiao Wu and the others. Stone has 9 levels of Qi training, Wu Sheng has 8 levels of Qi training, Yu 11 has 9 levels of Qi training, and Yu Xiao's 11th person has a minimum level of Qi training of 6 levels. Everyone's cultivation has improved and they are all very excited. But Mr. Mew and the others had just entered the first level of Qi training, so Yuan let them and Gao enter the space. They were 22 people in a flying boat, escorted by little snakes and little gold. When everything was ready, the 3 flying boats flew into the air towards Haoyu sect. With a distance of more than 2,000 miles, they only arrived at the gate of Haoyu city under the jurisdiction of Haoyu sect on the morning of the 3rd day. Wow, this city is so tall, Xiao Wu sighed as he looked at Haoyu city when they got off the boat outside the city gate. Yes, there is such a high city wall, the imperial palace is not this high, Xiao Lu said with a click of his tongue. Fen Yuan looked at the majestic city and nodded. It was indeed much taller than his palace. Yuan took the flying boat and looked towards the city gate. Sure enough, the city wall was so high. It was made of beige stones that she didn't recognize. It was about 20 feet high. There were people walking vaguely on the city wall. They should be patrolling. Let's go, stop looking, let's stay in the city first, Yuan called to them both. There are so many people coming into the city now. If it is later, there will be no inns. She led Xiao Liubian into the city, while Yu Hairan, Mujukan, and Yu11 followed them each with a few. Huh, no need to pay spirit stones here. They entered the city and Xiao Liu asked. They had to pay 5 spirit stones when they went to Fangxi. How come such a big city here doesn't need spirit stones? It should be that tomorrow is the Haoyu Sect's disciple recruitment conference, and preferential treatment will be given to those who come to participate in the election. Yuan replied to Xiao Liu, such a large city would definitely accept them. They entered and stopped at the door, looking at the bustling streets inside, the well-proportioned shops, the spacious and smooth marble roads, and the noisy flow of people. Hey, let's buy a map, 5 spiritual stones each. Several 8 or 9-year-old children on the street were selling bags of paper maps. Hey, here's one, Yuan called to a child, and she also bought one. This kind of paper map is easy for ordinary people to read. This kind of map is very convenient. Okay, Sister Fairy, take it. The child ran with her face flushed. She ran over and handed the one she was holding up in her hand to her. She also took out 5 spiritual stones and gave them to him. Thank you. The child took the spirit stone and thanked him before running away. Haha, that's quite polite, Xiao Lu muttered. That's right, people are very polite at such a young age, but our children are also very polite. She rubbed Xiao Liu's head, and Xiao Liu raised his head and smiled at her. Children, you still have to praise yourself. Xiao Sier, let's find an inn first. Yu Hairan stopped her and took the map she just bought and started reading it. Okay, how about you take them to look for them, and I'll go check out the market. With so many people, she took the opportunity to sell some of the elixirs in her space. She doesn't know how long the disciple recruitment conference will last, so she should sell it as soon as possible. Then the elixir is spawned, and then refined and sold again. Wan'er, I'll follow you, Mujukan said. Okay, big brother, where do you find it? Just ask the second brother to come to Fangxi to find us. Fourth sister, we want to go with you. Xiao and Xiaoqi also came up and said. Let's go, follow your brother Jukan. Yuan nodded. We are going to, she had just finished saying, and Feng Yuan and his son also took a few steps forward. Forget it, let's go find the inn alone. She really couldn't ignore the small eyes of Yu11 and the others. After Yu11 and the others heard this, they all moved closer to Mujukan. Let's go, the market is in Zikan. Mujukan bought another map. After seeing clearly where it was, he took the lead and walked ahead. Follow closely, don't get lost, Yuan warned, and everyone followed closely. There were too many people on the street. They stood at the city gate for a while, not knowing how many more people came in. They squeezed in the crowd for an hour before arriving at the gate of Fangxi, and they followed the crowd in. The market here is several times larger than that of Pingdingshan, and it is very standardized. The stalls are all built with stone slabs and can be placed directly with items. There is a small room at the entrance, which is the stall rental office. There is a sign at the door that says, rental stall, 5 spiritual stones each, valid for the day. I'll rent a stall. Yuan took out 5 spiritual stones and handed them to the administrator. The administrator took the spirit stone and gave her a wooden sign with the number 27 written in 3 rows. Fourth sister, that's the 3rd row. Xiao Liu found them all. Okay, the group of them counted and numbered. Fourth sister, here, it turns out that Xiao Wu and Xiao Qi are all standing in front of number 27. Yuan went inside. The stall was so small that she could stand alone. Xiao Lu pouted and wanted to come in but couldn't stand anymore. She looked at Yu Hao and said, second brother, let's go for a walk. Yu Hao nodded, this stall is too small, standing here is still blocking Xiao Sier's stall. Mujukan had no choice but to take a few little ones around. Yuan now took out the elixirs and talismans and put them on the table. Fellow Taoist, how do you sell your elixir? A monk came up immediately and asked, accompanied by a gorgeously dressed woman. A bottle of medium-grade elixir costs 600 spiritual stones, and a bottle of high-grade elixir costs 1500 spiritual stones. Hiss, the monk took a breath, it's so expensive. You said yours is a top-grade elixir. Yeah, what's the problem? She also took a bottle of elixir and opened it to show him. Ah, it's really a top-grade elixir. The male monk smelled it and looked intoxicated. Let's go, brother. At this time, the girl next to him pulled his sleeve. What's the rush? I haven't bought it yet. He shook off the girl's hand and gave Yuan 1500 spiritual stones. Brother, are you serious? You are the only one who believes that there are any high-grade elixirs in this kind of stall. Is it possible for anyone to make high-grade elixirs? You see, they just don't want to buy them, the girl pointed out angrily. He pointed at the person next to him and said, gouging out his eyes at Yuan. Yuan was not happy. Wouldn't this ruin her business? She said, if you don't buy it, you can pass by. Why bother to bury people? Why isn't my elixir a top-grade elixir? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 226. Chapter 226. Mujukan is a sitter. The girl wanted to say something, but the male cultivator had already paid for the spiritual stone and taken the elixir and pulled it away. Yuan even saw her stamping her feet. She looked away and continued selling her elixirs. She frowned. The monk stood in front of her stall and just watched. This seriously affects people who want to buy elixirs. She said, hey fellow Taoists, if you don't want to buy it, please disperse. Other Taoist friends want to buy it? How can I sell it if you are like this? Yeah, don't stop us from buying. If you don't have the spirit stone, don't just sit here and buy it. At this time, a man outside the crowd said with a somewhat sarcastic voice. Well, isn't this Mujukan's voice? Just changed his appearance. Yuan glanced at him. Didn't this guy go away for a transfer? Why did he come back to be her babysitter? Sure enough, the faces of the few monks who were not interested in buying the product turned red. One of them took out 500 spirit stones and bought a bottle of medium-grade chi gathering pill. After a few clicks, he left. After the monk retreated, Mujukan squeezed in. He took out 4,500 spiritual stones and said proudly, fellow Taoist, give me one bottle each of the best chi gathering pill, healing pill, and chi replenishing pill. Yuan glanced at him speechlessly. She was not worried about not being able to sell her elixir. What kind of sitter do you want to be? Speaking of which, he also has so many spiritual stones. However, she still took the spirit stone from him and gave him 3 bottles of elixirs. Mujukan took the elixir and retreated. Sure enough, with Mujukan as a shill, I bought the elixir, and later someone tried to buy a bottle of middle or high quality. But there is still more to see. Yuan is not in a hurry. As long as someone buys her elixir today, her elixir will definitely be snapped up tomorrow. Just kidding, her elixirs are genuine and she is not worried that no one will buy them. They just came here once in a while, and when Yu Heiran came to find her, it was already afternoon, so she simply closed the stall and returned to the inn he rented with everyone. After returning to her and Xiaoliu's room, Xiaoliu was probably tired from shopping, so she fell asleep when she came back. King KKK, then there was a knock on the door. Yuan went to open the door. Aren't you going to rest? The person who came was none other than Mujukan. I'm not tired. He entered the room and saw Xiaoliu lying on the bed, so he turned around and left. Don't worry, Yuan called him and put the 4,500 spiritual stones in a small storage bag for him. What are you doing for me? I'm the one who bought the elixir. Mujukin returned the storage bag to him. What? You haven't even entered the sect yet, and you can already tell the difference so clearly. Yuan put the storage bag into his hand and pushed him out. Bang, and then closed the door. Hey, Waner, that's not what I meant, Mujukin said to the door. He raised his hand to knock on the door again, but then withdrew his hand. He glanced at the closed door and rubbed his temples. He made his wife angry again. What he means is to hand over the earned spiritual stones to his wife. There is no problem with this. Why is the wife angry? Ah, by the way, I said the wrong thing, and it caused a misunderstanding, Mujukin complained in his heart. What did he come from? Buy the spiritual stone for the elixir. He slapped himself on the mouth. Why wouldn't Waner be angry after hearing this? Oh, forget it, his wife was angry, so he stood at the door for a while and then left. She did not activate the formation in the room. Everything about Mujukin outside was in her consciousness. She raised the corners of her mouth. After opening the formation, she sat on the bed and began to meditate. The next day, the sisters got up and had breakfast. Xiao Lu, are you going to attend the sect's disciple recruitment conference with my eldest brother and the others, or are you going to Fangxi with me? Xiao Lu tilted his head and looked at her, then thought about it and said, Fourth sister, I want to go with my eldest brother. Yuan glanced at her. Does such a person who doesn't like to practice want to enter the sect? She asked her, do you want to enter the sect or just visit? I want to join the section. When we were hunting in the mountains, we heard some sect disciples say that the sect is better for cultivation, so I want to go, Xiao Lu said seriously. Then you go. Fourth sister isn't going, Xiaoliu asked her with a frown. Yuan shook her head. Fourth sister is not going. She doesn't like to join the section. She has the skills and practices them step by step. Xiaoliu hesitated a little, and said, if fourth sister doesn't go, I won't go either. Yuan shook her head. She rubbed Xiaoliu's head and said, Xiaoliu, go ahead. I don't know if you can be selected. If you can enter the sect to practice, it will only be good for you, not bad. She can take them with her for a while, but not for a lifetime. Monks have a long lifespan, and they will eventually become independent one day. The sect is relatively safe. As long as you don't behave in a public way and don't cause trouble, you can survive safely. She didn't ask them to do anything great, to be able to successfully build the foundation, to form the elixir safely, and to live hundreds of years. Xiao Lu nodded. Xiao Sier, Xiao Lu, are you okay? At this time, Yu Haoshan's voice came from outside. Xiao Lu opened the door immediately, and Yuan followed him out and saw them all coming out. Xiao Sier, are you really not going? Yu Hairan asked her again. No, it's just right, it's about to start, you go quickly, she shook her head. Well, let's go, Yu Hairan said and took them all down. Why do you always get behind the wheel? Yuan asked Mujukin, who had not left yet. Waner, that's not what I meant yesterday. Mujukin looked at her nervously. I know, go quickly, Yuan said in a brisk tone, and walked behind him to push him. This guy is walking behind for this reason. Are you really not angry with me anymore? Mujukin suddenly turned around, held her in his arms, and asked her in her ear. I'm really not angry anymore, let go. There are people in this corridor, let them laugh. Yuan pushed him away hard, but unfortunately he was too strong and couldn't push him away. What's so funny? I'm hugging my wife. Mujukin refused to let go. He wanted to get rid of all the depression from last night. He was out of mood all night last night and thought wildly all night. Okay, you can hold me. The older this person gets, the more he looks like a child, and he even acts like a baby. What about his aloof style? It seemed like there was no trace of it left in him now. Yuan simply put her hands around his waist, buried her head in his chest, and smelled the manly scent on his body. This is the breath of an adult man, with a masculine smell. At this moment, she suddenly realized that she was 17 years old and he was 23 years old. After this year, next year she will be 18 and he will be 24. It seemed like more than a year had passed since she came here from the great Yan Empire. She suddenly thought that her space was here, and the spiritual energy in it was missing. It should be that the space drew the spiritual energy from the space to protect itself at that time, and it was probably damaged. Fortunately, the space can still be remedied. It is estimated that it is unlikely to increase the space. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 227. Chapter 227 Entering the Haoyu Sect. My thoughts have gone too far. Let's go. She pushed Mujukan, and he let her go this time. The two held hands and went downstairs. We won't be at the inn when we get back, we'll be in the square in front of the city lord's palace. Come find us there, Mujukan said when he arrived at the door of the inn. Well, I know, go ahead. Good. The two separated. Yuan walked towards Fang City, and Mujukan walked towards the square of the city lord's mansion. Yuan went to Fangshi and bought another stall. After finding it, she arranged the elixirs and talismans one by one. Hey, my fellow Taoist has just come, the monk who brought the girl yesterday said when he saw her. Yes, are you going to buy my elixir again today? Yes, your elixir is really good. Give me 5 bottles today. When he said that, he had already put 7,500 spiritual stones in the storage bag and handed them to Yuan. Thank you. I think this bottle of middle-grade healing elixir is a gift from me. When Yuan was getting the elixir for him, she also gave him a bottle of middle-grade healing elixir. It is rare to find such a generous person. Okay, thank you. The male cultivator took the elixir and left. Hey, fellow Taoist, I'll have a bottle too. This is a regular customer from yesterday. Yuan bought more than 20 bottles in a row, all of whom were regular customers yesterday. She just said that as long as the monks who have used her elixirs will become repeat customers. Today is the first day of the Haoyu sect's disciple recruitment meeting. There are many fewer people coming to the market. Some of them came in a hurry to buy things and then left. So when Yuan sold half as many elixirs today than yesterday, and it was almost midnight, she closed the stall and returned to the inn. In the inn, none of Yu Heiran and the others came back. After Yuan threw the spirit stone into the space, she walked towards the square. She followed the flow of people, and after 2 sticks of incense, she came to a crowded square. 3 tables were placed on a high platform in the square, and 3 long queues lined up in front of each table. She tried her best to squeeze into the crowd, and then she saw clearly that the monks wearing blue disciple uniforms above were testing the people who came up. She frowned. The disciple who was being tested was almost 30 years old, and his cultivation level was lower than hers, but the sect actually accepted him. Hey, this fellow Taoist, you're so old, why do you want to accept him? She touched a monk next to her who was in his 50s or 60s and was at the 7th level of Qi training. When the man saw that she was a girl and her cultivation level was higher than his, he was a little angry at first, but he immediately put it away. He quickly said, "You don't know that the rules have been changed this year. Anyone under the age of 40 who has reached the 6th level of Qi training will do you charge all the layers." Yuan shook her head and thanked him. She stood there and stared for a while. It was just as the old monk said. She thought deeply, what does this mean? Why does Haoyu sect have such low requirements? There must be monsters when things go wrong. There are many people with spiritual roots in the world of immortality. Even if it is reduced to those who have 3 spiritual roots, there are still many people who can be selected. Why don't you look at the spiritual roots? She was anxious, and her consciousness was sent out to look for Yu Heiran and the others. But the square is too big, and it's night again. They came here in the morning, and I'm afraid they've all tested it by now. She hurriedly pushed forward again. Hiss, you stepped on me, why are you so crowded, female cultivator? A male cultivator glared at her. Ah, sorry, I came here to see someone. They came here in the morning. I don't know if they have taken the test yet. Yuan apologized quickly. It's too late to come here now. People who lined up in the morning have already taken the test, the male cultivator said. Oh, thank you, she said, and quickly exited. She saw that the selected people had all entered the city lord's palace, so she ran to the edge of the crowd and looked inside, but she couldn't see it, and she couldn't get in. She calmed down and looked at the crowded square. She was thinking that the Haoyu sect would not have any evil intentions in accepting disciples so blatantly. It's still so unreasonable, even with Mujukin's head, he wouldn't have thought of it. With so many monks here running for election, it's impossible not to have any doubts. Have you all lost your head? She took a deep breath, hoping she was overthinking it. Since she couldn't find anyone, she returned to the inn. There were only a few people in the inn, and they were also talking about this year's disciple recruitment conference. Hey, tell me, why are you recruiting so many disciples this year? Said the two young monks walking in front of her. I don't know, I won't go anyway. Where I want to go, I see they accept everyone. There is no benefit in going to the section. It is better to practice on your own. Yuan returned to the room and sat with her eyes open all night. The next day, Yu Heiran and the others still didn't come back. She went to the market first to see if the elixir could be sold for as much as she could. She has sold out the elixirs. If they don't come back, she will go to Haoyu sect to find them. Her conditions are completely sufficient to enter the Haoyu section. You will know it if you enter the Haoyu sect. Yuan came to Fangxi and she set up a stall. As soon as it was set up, business came to the door. Fellow Taoist, here are 10 bottles of medium-grade healing pills and 10 bottles of high-grade qi-gathering pills. A female cultivator threw the spiritual stone to her and said calmly. Yuan glanced at her. She was a beautiful female cultivator in her 20s who had only reached the 10th level of qi training. When she gave the elixir to her, she nodded, took it and left. Fellow Taoist, have a bottle. Fellow Taoist, here are 2 bottles. Fellow Taoist, please bring a bottle of high-quality products. Suddenly, there was an endless stream of people coming to Yuan's stall to buy elixirs. It's just that she is no longer in the good mood before. She sold from the morning until the market closed in the evening and closed the stall. She quickly closed the stall and walked to the inn. When she arrived, she looked and saw that Yu Heiran and the others still hadn't come back. She quickly ran to the square and saw that the long dragon was still testing. She also lined up behind a long queue. Of all the monks who came on stage for testing, there were only a few who came down. The test was very fast, but she found a problem. Those with single and double spiritual roots entered the left room, while those with 3 spiritual roots and below entered the right room. What does it mean? Yuan lowered her head and thought. It's your turn, the person behind pushed her. Oh, she came back to her senses. She was indeed there, it was her turn. She stepped forward and stood in front of the spirit measuring ball. Put your hand up, the standing disciple in blue looked at her and said. Oh. She put her hand on it, and the crystal ball immediately glowed with red, green, and yellow colors, and the scale next to it stopped at 12. What's your name and how old are you? The disciple who was sitting taking notes asked her. Yuan, 17 years old. The disciple brushed it a few times to mark it down, then brushed it a few times on a wooden sign, then handed the wooden sign to her and said, enter from the right. Oh. She took the wooden sign and walked to the right, taking a look at the wooden sign. There were 2 rows of words on it, one row of Haoyu sect, and the other row of her name. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 228. Chapter 228. Yuan turned to the right and entered a passage. After walking a short distance, a large room appeared in front of her. There were already many people in the room. Everyone was standing or sitting, all looking at the same place, outside the house. Yuan scanned the room and did not see Yu Heiran or the others. I don't think they are in the same room. She looked at the only door of the house and slowly walked towards the door from the crowd. What are you in a hurry for? We'll all go together later. When she walked to the door, a female nun sitting on the ground yelled at her impatiently. Can't you go out now? Yuan asked, not taking her attitude seriously. Aren't you talking nonsense? With so many people out there, who would be crowded here, like a prison cell? If I had known this, I would have come to participate in some kind of disciple recruitment conference, and to recruit so many people, I would not feel at ease at first glance. In the end, the female cultivator continued to talk alone. You all come out. A disciple of the Haoyu sect came in from outside and said. Yuan felt as if he was sending someone to the execution ground. Everyone rushed out after being able to go out, but Yuan walked last. After coming out, there was a big silver airship parked in front of everyone, and people were already on the airship. Everyone, hurry up and stop making noise, the Haoyu sect disciple shouted. Yuan frowned. No one was making any noise, so why didn't he let people talk? Are you afraid that someone would hear you? Yuan was also urged to get on the flying boat. After she found a place to sit on the side, the flying boat flew into the sky. Yuan always felt that this thing was weird in every way. It didn't feel like entering a sect, it felt completely like going to die. It's just that no matter what she will face on this trip, she must go through it. We must not let uncle, eldest brother, and the others have any accidents. She glanced at the foundation building monk driving the airship, hoping that he would take them to their destination quickly. No one was making any noise on the flying boat. She was also thinking about her own thoughts, and half a day passed before she knew it. Why are you flying so far? A monk next to him said. He also stood up and looked around. Yes, I heard that Haoyu sect is not far from Haoyu city. Why did it take so long to fly? And it keeps getting farther and farther, another person also said in confusion. Uncle, where are you taking us? The questioner was the female cultivator who Yuan was impatient with in the room. She also asked in a very impatient tone. Yuan shook her head secretly. A person with this kind of temperament would not survive one episode on TV. Not very capable and not very good-tempered. A foundation building monk next to the foundation building monk driving the flying boat gave her a dark look. If you want to survive, just shut up. If you talk more, I will throw you all down. Some people were so frightened by his eyes that they trembled, and some people looked outside the flying boat. The flying boat shuttled between the clouds. It was so high that if it was thrown off, it would be severely disabled even if it was thrown away. Suddenly, everyone was silent. The flying boat flew for 3 days and 3 nights, and finally stopped on a grassland full of tents. Uncle Master, how did you send us here? What is this place for? As soon as the boat got off the boat, people gathered around the 2 foundation building monks and asked. Come here for the assessment. Only those who pass can join the section. Do you really think you can enter our Haoyu sect casually? The foundation building cultivator said sarcastically. Assessment? What kind of assessment is master? Can you explain it a little more clearly? Yes, what kind of test is the master's degree? Foundation building monk waved impatiently and said, we'll know tomorrow. Why are you anxious? Find a place to rest quickly. Everyone was helpless when they heard this, and they all went to set up their own tents to rest. Yuan walked between the tents that had been set up and looked at them. What are you looking at here? Why don't you go and rest? A foundation building monk suddenly appeared in front of her and said unkindly. Oh. Yuan turned around and left. It seemed that it would be impossible to find Yu Heiran and the others tonight. She threw a futon on the ground at the edge and closed her eyes. Even though her eyes were closed, her consciousness never relaxed for a moment, and she paid close attention to everything around her. She didn't believe what the foundation building monk said about the test. What test was on this plane? Without any explanation in advance, it's still squeaking when we get here, so it's definitely not good. She observed the terrain here. This grassland is surrounded by mountains, especially the inner direction of the Wuhua Mountains, which is full of dense forests. The dark forest was like a giant beast with its huge mouth open, and it felt like it could swallow them up at any time. At dawn, the two foundation building monks who brought them here yesterday woke them up. "Hurry up and gather in front of me within 10 breaths, the foundation building monk shouted while standing on the flying boat. Hearing this, Yuan stood up, put the futon away, and walked over. Yesterday everyone on the flying boat stood in front of the flying boat within 10 breaths. One of the foundation building monks nodded and expressed that he was very satisfied with everyone's speed and execution. Very good. Remember, starting from today, you will enter the mountains circled by the sect to practice, and you will gather here in a month. Uncle Master, is it dangerous? Asked a young monk at the 6th level of Qi training. What do you think? When we get here, we have to go or die, or we must die in the mountains, or I will kill him now. The monk who established the foundation immediately released the pressure on him. Thump thump, many people with low cultivation levels could not resist and fell to their knees on the ground. Yuan lowered her head. She couldn't resist it? There seemed to be a huge boulder weighing 1,000 kilograms above her head, pressing down on her. Her back was bent. Sweat immediately rolled down his forehead. Yuan frowned. Is this the power of a foundation building monk? Just when I was ready to grit my teeth and persevere, the power disappeared. I just heard the foundation building monk say coldly, "Start now, go in with them." Everyone wiped the sweat from their foreheads and turned around to follow the people who started to enter. Yuan walked and looked, hoping to find Yu Heiran and the others. Unfortunately, there were too many people and she didn't have enough sense to find one. But she will find them when she enters the training ground. She looked at the monks walking towards the mountains. This so-called training ground was probably a slaughterhouse. Arriving at the entrance, she saw everyone entering through a film-like door and then disappearing inside. Yuan knew that this was a formation. She also walked in with her feet. There was no feeling that it was a door. After she entered, she saw towering trees and dense weeds. The surroundings were quiet and there was no sound. And she was the only one around. There were obviously so many people coming in, but now she was the only one. Such a strange environment, what kind of formation should it be in? At this time, she hated herself for not learning more formations. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 229. Chapter 229 Slaughterhouse. Just as she was walking, there was a sudden whoosh sound, and a venomous snake like a small snake flew towards her. In desperation, she dodged and barely escaped the attack of the poisonous snake. But her feet moved, as if she were stepping on something. She jumped away in a hurry. At this time, there was a rustling sound in the forest, which was so eerily quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Yuan summoned a little snake Zyajin, and then stood on guard with a flying sword. The sounds of and hissing sounded. Yuan watched the densely packed venomous snakes flying or swimming, coming towards her like a tide from all directions. Hiss, she took a breath. Those were first-level venomous snakes, and even a little bit of this poison would probably kill her. Little snakes and little gold, kill them. The little snake Zyajin immediately moved, and they shuttled between the poisonous snakes like shadows. The poisonous snake flying in the air fell to the ground without making any sound. Yuan also swung her flying sword to chop at the poisonous snake flying toward her. Swish, 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 all the venomous snakes flying towards her were cut off by her, splattering blood all over her body. The poisonous snakes swimming on the ground saw that they could not enter her body, so they spit out their venom one after another. Seeing this, Yuan entered the space with a movement of consciousness. When he reappeared, there were constant explosions on the spot. The poisonous snakes that surrounded him were blown into foam and splashed all over the ground. An hour later, the last venomous snake was beaten to death by a smaller snake. Hoo, Yuan put the flying sword on the ground. She bent down and exhaled loudly. Master, let's go quickly. The little snake flew over. Okay, she rolled over on the little snake's back, waved her hand, and the venomous snake corpse on the ground was taken into the space and put away. She didn't know what was going on, but she always felt that the body couldn't be left here. The little snake took her and flew out of the forest. As soon as she came out, she saw a group of monks running desperately towards the dense forest, followed by a group of white moon wolves. Ah! At this moment, the monks in the forest screamed. The monks who had not run in behind him stopped for a moment, and the white moon wolf who was chasing after them swooped forward again. In those 10 breaths of time, dozens of monks became silent. Let's go, Yuan, who was stunned for a moment, called Xiaojin. Now she had no time to care about other people's lives and deaths. She had to find Yu Heiran and the others as soon as possible. How long can they resist such a ferocious monster made her more and more anxious. In the forest, killings were taking place everywhere, and there were basically no surviving monks anywhere. Yuan really doesn't understand. In this so-called training place, even the monks in the late stage of Qi training can't escape intact. Why do they have to drive so many monks in to die? The number of monks who entered was not a small number, at least 100,000. She felt that these monks were here to bring food to the monsters here. Master, there are more than 100 people in front of us who are besieged. Do we want to rescue them? Xiaojin couldn't stand it any longer, and this was the nth time he asked Yuan. Hey, Yuan sighed. Then little snake goes to find big brother and the others. Xiaojin and I will go there. Don't say her heart is as solid as a rock and she is worse than an animal, she just helps. Okay, master, be careful. The little snake put her on Xiaojin's back and flew away. Xiaojin quickly flew towards the place where the fight was taking place. Master, it's those white moon wolves again, Xiaojin sent a message to her. Let's go down. After hearing this, the little snake placed her 10 feet away from the fighting arena. It transformed back into its original form and flew towards the white moon wolf. Yuan took out a talisman and clasped it in the palm of her hand, then jumped to Bai Yuelang. She shouted to the monks, "Get back quickly." She raised her hand, and 5 explosive talisman flew towards the 5 white moon wolves. Boom, 5 explosions sounded. Ah! He immediately blasted away the 5 white moon wolves that were happily biting the monks, and fell to the ground with several screams. Yuan and the others jumped over and threw a handful of talismans towards the Bai wolves. At the same time, he shouted and the monks quickly retreated. Ah, hurry up, everyone, run away. Some monks saw Yuan rushing towards the wolves alone. When they heard her shouting, they also called other monks to retreat. Many monks fled after seeing the wolves letting them go. Someone came to save them, and naturally it was more important to save their own lives. The white moon wolves saw Yuan rushing in alone. They let go of the prey they were biting, turned around and charged towards her with bared teeth. Hiss, little King Kong finished taking care of a white moon wolf. When he saw the wolves surrounding him, he immediately issued a warning. Then a big tail swept around Yuan, sweeping the surrounding white moon wolf to the ground. Master, come up, Xiaojin immediately leaned down. Yuan nodded, and she jumped on Xiaojin's back, Xiao Jin, fly lower, and we will blow them up with talismans. Xiao Jin glanced at the wolves below, flew over the head of the white moon wolf, lowered the altitude, and then Yuan threw down a handful of talismans. After a few rounds, half of the more than 100 white moon wolves had fallen. But Yuan's heart was also throbbing, and she had spent a lot on her talismans. If she could sell them, how many spiritual stones would she have to sell? She looked at the wolf corpses on the ground. She had to take away these valuable spiritual stones. She cannot do business at a loss. Xiao Jin, let's collect the body. Xiao Jin nodded, and he dived. When he touched the ground, his tail swept towards the white moon wolf that was surrounding him like crazy. The opportunity has come, hurry, master. Good. Yuan waved her hand, and dozens of wolf corpses on the ground entered the space. When Xiao Jin saw this, he immediately flew up. When the white moon wolves saw that their companion's body was missing, they jumped up with red eyes and wanted to bite Xiao Jin. Boom, Yuan took the opportunity to throw down a handful of talismans. She didn't care what kind of talismans they were, she would throw them away as soon as she caught them. Ah! At this time, the white moon wolf, who was not killed by the explosion, looked up to the sky and roared, with anger and sadness in his voice. Master, collect the body quickly, let's run quickly, the white moon wolf is calling their king. Xiao Jin heard the howl of the wolf, but the owner couldn't understand it, but it could. Okay, Yuan didn't hesitate. When Xiao Jin was pressed against the ground, she collected all the wolf corpses. Then Xiao Jin flew away. Master, come on soon. The little snake came over with 2 people on his back. Xiao Lu Xiao Qi. Yuan panicked, and with a flash of consciousness, she brought them and herself into the space. What's wrong with Xiaoliu and Xiaoqi? She quickly stuffed a top-quality healing elixir into their mouths and asked the little snake. Yuan's heart was so painful that she couldn't stop her tears from flowing down her face. When she checked the injuries on the 2 of them, they found that they were extremely injured. Their bodies were covered in blood and flesh, the wounds were bleeding, their internal organs were about to flow out, and many bones were broken. This was obviously bitten by a monster. Fortunately, the elixir had already taken effect. The wounds on his body stopped bleeding and began to heal at the speed of the naked eye. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 230. Chapter 230 Xiao Wu's Opportunity 1. After the wounds healed, she cleaned both of them and asked the little snake to find Mu Yunjin to change Xiao Qi's clothes, and she also changed into Xiao Liu's clothes. Waner, what's wrong with them? Mu Yunjin asked with a frown after changing Xiao Qi's clothes. Oh, I was attacked by monsters when I was training on the mountain, but it's nothing serious, brother. Please watch over them for me and let them heal when they wake up. I still have to go out. She was telling the truth, they were really experiencing it. Mu Yunjin nodded. Yuan breathed a sigh of relief and led the 2 out of the space. Outside, Bai Yuelang saw them disappear suddenly and thought they had escaped. When their king arrived, they were slapped hard by the Wolf King, and then they went around looking for their master and servant. So when their master and servant came out, apart from the mess and blood all over the place, the white moon wolf had already disappeared. Little snake, let's search separately. You go alone. I'll go with Xiao Jin. If you find them, take them with you. After saying that, Yuan gave part of the talisman and elixir to the little snake, so that when it finds them, it can be shared with them. The little snake put the things into the space inside its body and flew away. The little snake left, and Xiao Jin took Yuan to search in the forest. I don't know how big this forest is. The master and the servant searched for 3 days, but they couldn't find anyone. On the other hand, killings can be seen everywhere, and she will take action against monsters that are not troublesome. But the little snake didn't bring anyone to find him either. Yuan was extremely anxious. It had been so many days, and her little disciples were not very good at cultivation. If they could not be found again, there was little chance of their survival. "Master, don't worry," Xiao Jin felt her master resting on her back, so she comforted her through a message. Yuan's eyebrows have never relaxed, so it's strange that she's not in a hurry. "Master, I seem to smell the breath of Master's brother," Xiao Jin said and flew towards a cave. Real. She wished she could fly there by herself. Well, there's more than one person. Xiao Jin suddenly landed in the cave that could accommodate one person. "Master, let me go in and take a look first." Xiao Jin put Yuan down and headed into the cave. Yuan couldn't care less about what was going on inside. She also smelled the breath of Yu Heiran and the others, but the breath was mixed, and she didn't know how many people there were. She followed Xiao Jin in. There were fresh marks inside, and she ran in quickly. "Brother, where are you? Did you hear me?" she couldn't help shouting. "Is it Xiao Sier, Yu Hao, who was lying on the ground?" said in surprise. "Brother, our little third son is saved, you have to hold on." Yu Hao looked at the unconscious Yu Heiran and Yu Haoshan. He moved with difficulty and shouted in the direction of the cave entrance, "Xiao Sier, we are here." But the voice he shouted was too low, and he was afraid that only he could hear it. Yuan couldn't hear it. Xiao Jin's consciousness was stronger than hers, and it heard Yu Hao's weak cry. It flew away quickly. Yuan also ran in quickly. "Brother, second brother, did you hear this?" she shouted as she ran. She could already smell the smell of blood, and there was still Yu Hao's faint response in her consciousness. "Second brother," when Yuan ran with Xiao Jin, only Yu Hao was still conscious, but he was also seriously injured. And Yu Heiran and Yu Haoshan beside him were already unconscious. Yuan's head was buzzing and she almost fainted. She hoped that they could all be saved. "Xiao Sier, save them quickly." Yu Hao's weak face finally showed a hint of joy. "Well, second brother, don't move." She couldn't help but wipe away her tears and quickly stuffed a top-quality healing elixir into their mouths. Then the consciousness examines their injuries. Their injuries were very serious, and they all had only a weak breath. They were injured by monsters and were unconscious due to excessive bleeding. One of Yu Heiran's legs was severed from the middle of the thigh with only a few tendons left. She immediately took out the bone renewal pill from the space and fed it to him, and then input spiritual power to help him dissolve the potion. When the medicine was taking effect, she looked at Yu Haoshan. He was also in the same condition. Many bones were broken and shattered, and there were bite wounds all over his body. A piece of flesh on his face was bitten off, and he was completely covered. Fortunately, he was unconscious. If he saw him like this, he would be scared to death. She also gave him a Jigedan pill to help him dissolve the medicine. An hour later, Yuan finally rescued them. When the auras of Yu Heiran and Yu Haoshan gradually became stronger, she took them into the space and let Mu Yunchen watch. "Second brother, how are you now?" Yu Hao opened his eyes and nodded, "It's much better." "Are the eldest brother and the third child okay?" "I've been rescued, but I don't know when I'll wake up." "By the way, second brother, where are Mujukan, Xiao, and Shitu? Haven't you met them?" "The siblings and Xiao Wu have not been found, and the apprentice has not found anyone yet." Mujukan believed that he was strong enough to protect himself. "No, when we came in together, but we were separated after entering. Later, I met a demon fox. It was the elder brother and the younger brother who heard the sound of fighting and rushed over to save me desperately. They both suffered. He was seriously injured, but the demon fox didn't survive either." Yuan was silent after hearing this. She took Yu Hao into the space and immediately came out with Xiao Jin. She suppressed the anger in her heart. Her current goal was to find someone. When she found someone, she would kill all the monsters here. Xiao Jin waited until Yuan got on its back before it flew away again. In an unknown dark cave in the middle of winter in the forest, Xiao Wu opened his eyes and his consciousness returned, knowing that he had fallen into a cave. He struggled to sit up and touched something plush with his hand. When he looked at it with consciousness, the corner of his mouth twitched. His feelings were the demon fox he pulled to support him, and now only one piece of skin was left that was good. He sat down cross-legged, took out a healing elixir from his storage bag, swallowed it, and began to heal. After burning a stick of incense, he got up, kicked the demon fox skin, lifted it up and shook it a few times. When the skin was bare, he put it away, then looked up at the exit where the hole could not be seen. He shook his head. It was unrealistic to get out of the hole. He could only look inside the hole to see if there was a way out. He held the flying sword in his hand and walked slowly towards the cave. Huh? Is it a house? Does anyone live here? After Xiao Wu walked for a long time, a door-like door blocked his way. When he got closer, he saw that it was indeed a stone door. He groped for a long time on the door, not knowing how to open it. He stood up, put away his flying sword, and used all his spiritual power to strike at the stone door. Boom, the stone door shattered all over the floor. Xiao Wu touched his head. Why didn't it break when he pushed it before? End of this chapter.